Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You are watching Security Scan with me, Vishal Dahiya, and today we will talk about the weapon locating radar Swathi. Now, in a major boost to defense exports, India has recently bagged a deal worth $40 million to supply 4 indigenously built weapon locating radar Swathi to Armenia. Now, Swathi WLR is developed by DRDO and manufactured by BEL. The export deal is seen as a big achievement for Make in India program in the defense sector. It is an electronically scanned phased array radar and automatically locates hostile artillery, mortars and rocket launchers, in addition to tracking friendly fire to locate the impact point and issue necessary corrections as required. Now, it has the capability to handle simultaneous fire from weapons deployed at multiple locations. Swathi WLR is also being used by Indian Army for its operations along the line of control in J&K. So for more on this, kind of weapons locating radar and how has been the journey as far as military radars in India and the DRDO's development or the indigenous development is concerned, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests in the studio today. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Retired Lieutenant General Dr. V.K. Saxena, distinguished fellow from PIF, is here with us. We also have with us Retired Air Force Marshal P.K. Srivastava, our defense expert, and we have with us Mr. Manu, Pubby, the senior editor of Economic Times as well. Welcome, gentlemen, to Rajya Sabha TV studios. Let me begin with you, General Saxena, and let's start by understanding the military radars and their journey and the concept. What is the utilization? How far have we come in terms of, indigenous development as well, since we're talking about Swathi today?
Okay, to address this question, while we can say that the Defense Research and Development Organization may be plagued with a large number of failures, time and cost overruns, delays, not producing projects in time, etc., etc. But if there is one field where they have made substantial progress, is in the field of military radars. And those military radars, I take the name of the LRD, or Electronics Radar Development Establishment. Somebody questions why L for electronics. Somebody says you have taken electronics EL, or somebody says in the Latin language electronics is called Electra, so whatever may be. I have been associated with this LRD for last 35 years, and I have seen it grow over a period of time. I can divide the development of military radars in 5 different verticals. First, I'll talk about the early era, then came the Akash era, then came the BMD era, then came the miniature era, and now what is the future and latest and the future. In the early era, like 70s I'm talking about, the LRD came out with a radar called Indra 1, Indian Doppler Radar 1. Range was 90 kilometers and also it was a pulse compression technique radar. And initially Indra 1 failed. It did not behave properly in the field and the target reception rate was very low. It was improved thereupon by Indra 2. Indra 2 radar, the pulse compression technique was better, range resolution was better, the CFR rate was better, means it was a better technology. Now, after Indra 1 and Indra 2, along the same time, the integrated guided missile development program was running all along from 82, 83 onwards in the parallel vertical. And around that time, the turn of the century, 1995, the 3 different radars came out. Firstly was the Akash weapon system radar called the Rajendra radar. Now, Rajendra was a passive electronically scanned array radar. Our range was 80 kilometers and capability to track 64 targets at a time. Now, this was the basic radar. I have operated this radar myself, so I know that this is one of the good developments of the DRDO, the called Rajendra radar. And along with this Rajendra radar came the Central Acquisition Radar, CAR. CAR is the longest range radar, a total range of 180 kilometer range, 150 targets at a time it can track. Now, between Rajendra and CAR, the parallel developments took place. From Rajendra came out the Swathi, which you are talking about, which I will connect little later. And from CAR came out 3 different radars. Army got the 3-dimension tactical control radar. What is a tactical control radar? It's a long-range radar which can look at the targets and also designate the target to a fire control radar, the one which controls guns and missiles. So 3D tactical control radar, again I am very fortunate, I want to tell the audience that I had the honor and privilege to induct 3D tactical control radar into the Indian Army Air Defence.
Okay.
Then for the Air Force, from this car came out the Rohini radar, and for the Indian Navy came out the Revathi radar. So this was one Akash era. From Akash era, let us switch to the BMD era. Now the ballistic missile defense program AD, started to getting traction from 2001, 2002 onwards, and over a period of time, 7-8, until 2007-8, we saw another radar which was called the Swordfish radar. Swordfish radar is a long range radar, 600 kilometer range, can track targets, 400 targets at a time. This was adapted from the Israeli Green Pine radar. This was another development. Now I take you to a miniature development. People thought, it was at the time when we were Colonel Brigadiers, midway through our service, the requirement was felt that these are huge machines. How to take a radar to a high altitude, to a mountainous terrain where we can deploy, get 20-30 kilometer range. A problem was posed, and a radar that we came out with, the DRDO came out with through LRD, was called the low level lightweight radar. I remember the name of one Dr. Kulur, and I was associated with this radar. He was told that you have to break this radar into 5 pieces and put it on the mule, it will go on high altitude. He says, sir, what is mule? And what? So we had to bring a mule, show him this is how it is, and we ended up developing the Bharni radar, 250 kg weight and 40 kilometer range. From this came out the Air Force Ashlesha radar. And this, from this miniature radar, now we come to the current era of what is happening. Now we are developing the Uttam series of advanced or active electronic scan array radar for the Tejas Mark II. We are also developing the air defense fire control radar and air defense tactical control radar through the LRD as a mission mode projects. We are also developing the Ashwani 4D radar, which is in the low level lightweight category, and we are developing the Arudra medium range radar. Now all this is the current era. The LRD should also not sit on its laurels. There are much more ground to be covered. Like it has to develop the laser based radar, which is for the anti-stealth mission, which is called LIDAR. It has to build MIMO radars, multiple input, multiple output radar is called the MIMO radar. It has to build radar in the futuristic technology called quantum radar, in which instead of the radio waves, it is the photon which is divided into two. One is called the idler beam and is sent out, and the returning photon is compared with the returning beam. So these are the challenges. So I will say that we are talking about Swathi. I will say that if there is one field where DRDO, LRD, now what is the game like? The LRD is the becomes through DRDO is the design agency. Production agency become different. Like sometimes it is the Bharat Electronics Limited, sometimes it is some other. Like for example, this Swathi radar production agency is Bharat Electronics, and the design is who? DRDO, LRD. So this has been the journey of the military.
That's quite a fascinating journey and quite wonderfully put up for our viewers' sake there by General Saxena. Let me bring in ABM Srivastava here. ABM Srivastava, as General Saxena put, this journey starting from Indra 1 to now ISA radars for Tejas, as well as future developments which the researchers in DRDO are working on, the LRD as well. So if you look at from an end user's perspective of this whole array of radars which we have and their utility as well, would you from an end user perspective say it is quite satisfactory, though there are obviously scope for improvements because we're talking about technology?
I think that's a very good question, because I remember when I was a flight lieutenant and I was given to test out Indra 1 radar, and actually what happened, we found it so poor in performance that I was the one who wrote that this radar is not going to serve our purpose. So, Vishal, what happened later on, as I see their journey going through, now with the radars they are coming up, because I was associated with very specifically with the production and integration of Akash missiles, and we also see the current development which WLR. If you see the journey of Swathi, in 1980, the requirement was projected and it was in a way not taken care of. 1989, you evaluated one of the WRs from US, but the deal didn't go through because United States government did not allow it to go through. It was considered so important. And it's very important, critical for keeping the LOC quiet. And more so if you're in the mountainous range. And when Kargil happened, in between. And we had this great disadvantage because we just had Simbe with us, which could detect up to only 10 kilometers, and that those were rough calculations. And Pakistan had ANTPQ 36, 37. So they were able to locate, and if you go into the casualties, 80% casualties were from the artillery fire. And this radar coming up, now we have come to a stage that I am selling my own weapon locating radar to another country. It's a great journey. And you talked about the quality of radars and their reception and how we are getting rid of the clutter. They are exceedingly good now. We are following the latest technology, whether it is MTI or airborne MTI or FFT, all the technology are getting embedded to get rid of clutter. So it can operate in heavy clutter and high density fire environment, which you will face in case of artillery fire. So this radar, if I come specifically to Swathi, has been really a good journey. In between, the sanctions happened, we are all aware. When sanctions were lifted into 2001, then 2002, we went about evaluating, and again we got the same radar, weapon locating radar as Pakistan has. But if you really take the feel of artillery regiments, it didn't prove to be that good, because this radar has the capability of high mobility. That's a very agile radar. It can be deployed and redeployed in 30 minutes time. It can slew plus minus 135 degrees in just about 30 seconds. It can get the location of the weapons, enemy fire, in a very quick mode. If you see the DRDO talking about it, it doesn't take more than 60 to 90 seconds. So that means within that time you have the plot. That plot can be sent to your command and control unit, which can direct the fire. It also can do what we say our own fire assessment. If I fired something, whether it went to the right place or not. So what it can do, it can tell you the correction input also it can give to our own batteries to counter the battery which are firing at us. With all that coming together in this radar is really top class. And it can operate at 16,000 feet, which is a very high altitude. And for the J&K sector, you needed one such radar. Most of such radars, if you take an TPQ 37, etc., the American, they fail to perform to the best capability at that height. So here you got a radar which does this. There's one interesting anecdote how we got into this. When we were testing out Rajendra radar, we coincidentally or incidentally or accidentally happened to catch the mortar fire on the radar screen. That gave a thought. Therefore, the Rajendra radar is supposed to be the father of this radar, weapon locating radar. It gave an idea. So when we went in for kind of buying the radar, 12 radars in TPQ 37 we bought from USA, we also sanctioned this at some 20 crores project. This also sanctioned alongside. In 2003 itself, Indian Army placed the intent for buying 28 radars.
And 15 years later, it was given to the Indian Army.
Yeah, which ultimately resulted into, final thing we did, I think at some 256 crores, we bought 30 radars, which itself we compare the price-wise. We bought 12 radars at $200 million USD, and we bought 30 radars of our own with higher capability, better user interface at $256 million for 30. So price-wise also we got the advantage. So I get one sense of the matter. The sense of the matter is, we cannot blame DRDO or LRD for the delay, which appears that 1980 till today we inducted, only the formal induction took place in 2017. In between, actually we never sanctioned. When we sanctioned the funds, 2 years later they gave us the prototype. So see, if we can resolve as a country to go ahead with our technology, we have the technical and management bandwidth to actually achieve what we want to achieve. So that is the interplay. That must be understood through this channel, that we are lacking in our resolve to actually develop indigenously. And now, since we are competed against Polish and Russian radars and we got it right, that we have the order, I think it's a very great celebratory point.
So it is quite indeed a very valuable point made out there by AVM Srivastava, that what needs to be done should be put to the test out there as soon as possible. But very significantly, Manu, the very fact that this particular radar, that is Swathi WLR, has won this competitive bid, speaks volumes of its quality, because ultimately the buyer is shelling out money for it, and this also gives an indication about the technical prowess as far as indigenous technology of making radars is concerned.
See, the thing is that we have been very modest about our achievements, and between the two gentlemen sitting here, they have probably 60 years of experience between them, and they must have operated in all kinds of terrains. The Indian armed forces are unique in a sense. They operate in every possible terrain you can think of, from high altitude snowbound regions to the sea, to deserts, to marshy land. There is no terrain in the world in which the Indian armed forces have not operated. So the system that the Indian armed forces develop, or they want, is the best in the world, because even if it's something as small as a gypsy, that gypsy has to be modified to work in salty terrain, right up to Ladakh, Srinagar, everything. So when a system gets developed for the Indian armed forces, it is probably the best in the world, and it has to be cheap, because we're not a country known to splurge money, so we will watch the purse very, very carefully. Unfortunately, in the past, India has been used as a test case for foreign companies. Whenever the Indian Army or the Air Force or the Navy had a requirement, they would have a very unique requirement. They would need a system like, say, a rifle which works at -50 degrees and +50 degrees, and in the sea and elsewhere. So those systems would be developed specifically for us. They would be India specific equipment. Lots of examples for that. Sukhoi 30 MKI, that's the Indian version of the Sukhoi 30. That's probably the best Sukhoi available, because it was made specifically for our requirements. Subsequently, Russia exported to other countries, similar configuration. The K9 Vajra we have here, that's an artillery system which we are producing. It is designed, it's a Korean design, but it is specified for India. So it can work in deserts, unlike the Korean one. It can work in nuclear, biological, chemical warfare scenario. So it's a unique system. Same thing with Swathi radar, and like the ABM was pointing out, we have had the requirement for this radar for a while, but nobody in the world has a radar which can work at 16,000 feet, because nobody operates at that height. So we are operating at that place. So when this was developed, this has to be on technology the most competitive product. And why will other countries want to buy it? Because the Indian armed forces, when they test something and they induct it, it gives others a confidence that this is a system which is operating. And the Indian Army has been operating with these radars. We face artillery firing almost every day on our line of control. Armenia, I don't know last time when it faced artillery sharing, but when they see that Indian Army has inducted it, it works for them. But I think, unlike in the past where we have been shying away from exports, this time we have really dug our heels in. And not just this, I think a lot of other things, including more advanced radars and other weapon systems, are very, very apt for exports. And the confidence again for the export customer is that the Indian product will be reliable, it will be cheap, and it will be technically proven.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. General Saxena, two aspects different, but I would like your views on both of them quickly on that aspect. One, obviously, as AVM Srivastava has pointed out, the technical aspects of the Swathi WLR. Second is, as Manu pointed out, we're not shying away from selling our equipment, and obviously there is a reason behind that, and the reason why other nations are willing to buy that is also, as summed up by Manu, quite clear.
Two aspects to the question you asked. First of all, you talked about the technical muscle of Swathi. As the other panelists have brought out, it is to believe that Swathi is indeed the state of the art and the front ranking radar. I have talked about the capacity. It can store 99 targets, can track 7 targets at a time. It has a range for artillery shells up to 30 kilometers, 3 to 30 kilometers. For mortars, it is 2 to 20, and for unguided rockets of 120 millimeter or more, it can look up to 40 kilometers. You can do remote targeting. You can take the data to a command post and fire from there. Also, it has one of the best, state of the art radar technologies. First of all, it has got the low probability of interception technique, means it is unlikely to be painted on the enemy's radar warning receivers. It is the technique which they are employing for the pulse compression, which they have evolved from Rajendra and refined, also gives very good resolution, range resolution, and also has clutter ejection technique. In the clutter ejection, they are called the Cambrian filter technique, which is based on linear equation, quadratic equation. Very, very good way of rejecting the clutter. Because I have operated this radar, I can know it by hand. Also, sir, in addition to all this radar. It is capable of operating in all types of terrains and height, and moreover it is suited for us. Now, like everybody is saying, you know, the radar which the Russians, the Polish had given was a Levik counter battery radar, and the Russians had given one of their Aistonok radar, which is one of the very good counter battery radar mount. To compete against these two state-of-the-art radar and get it out is indeed an operation, because I have seen the father of this radar very closely, which is the Rajendra radar. I have seen its capability of its pulse compression, range resolution, clutter rejection, LPI, or also the resolution between the target to target, or capability to hold those many radars.
Okay.
So as regard technical muscle, we have talked enough to say that this is, and also one more
One
thing,
of the best
the projection is on a 3D map. You can see 100 kilometer by 100 kilometer screen on which the targets are presented, and also the counter battery fire can be directed either from the radar side or remotely, that is target designation mode.
Okay.
Now this is one end. Let us leave the technical muscle. Now this is a great day today. Means a great time. Times are changing, and today Jagdish Upasne has tweeted today. What has he said? It is for the first time that India has figured on the list of arms exporters. Okay. Now look at the irony. At one side, we are the second largest importers of arms and ammunition, only second to Saudi Arabia, nothing else. At the other time, we are also into, first time, though we have entered the list at 23 number, you know, defense export. But the fact remains that we have a foot in the door today. Today, India figures in the list of exporting nations and at the age of 23. Now, take off the time of 2014. What was our total defense export? 2,000 crores. And what we were exporting? Okay, helmet, protective gear, cartridges, clothing, some leather items, some other defensive gear. We have never talked big on exports. You know, evolutions took place over a period of time, but our exports remained miniature. Now, 2014-15, what happened? Make in India happened. And the dream given by the Prime Minister today, last few days, I think he has spoken, that we need to take these exports to 35,000 crores in next 5 years. Now imagine the cycle. 2014 we are at 2,000 crores. In 2018-19 we have got 16,993 crores. And in 25 we have to reach 35,000 crores. How will we reach? Will we reach through headgear, protective gear, leather items, cartridges, ammunition? No! We will reach through Swathi. We will reach through items like BrahMos. If you visited the Def Expo this time in Lucknow, one of the hot subjects in all the stalls which are dealing with Indian equipment was, what is exportable? What is exportable? You have all heard that BrahMos missile. There was a Indian military expo, IMEX 2019. In IMEX 2019, there were 3 South Asian countries and 2 Middle East countries which expressed interest in BrahMos missile, cruise missile system. What about Akash? Akash missile system has been asked by Myanmar, by Philippines, by Vietnam. 7 countries have shown interest.
And that's quite a big achievement.
Pinaka. Now, at the same time, don't only talk of Bell, BDL, DRDL. Look at the private industry today. Do you know that Tata Power SCD has got a contract of 1,200 crores for give a 3D surveillance radar, 23 of them for naval application. That means here is a private player. The private player initially was unmindful of the radar, not even into the radar technology. Today he is developing a product worth 1,200 crores. He is providing 23 3D surveillance radar for the Indian Navy. Now talk about L&T. L&T today produces the radar, which are fire control radar, early warning radar. Now, this is the time to come big. If you have to say from 1,700 crore, we have to go to 35,000 crore, then don't talk of only helmet and bulletproof jacket. By the way, one of my friends,
big ticket items will have to be included.
So that is the dream of defense export.
Okay.
It will come through big deals like this.
Big deals. AVM Srivastava, your views on this entire concept of increasing the defense exports. And as General Saxena put it, you know, we've entered the list, though we are at a very small number in terms of what we are exporting.
Yeah.
Still.
Vishal, I would like to link the whole episode of selling this with something which is the military, let's say, revolutionary military affairs. Because I think export is a corollary of thinking that if you have a product which is cost-wise low and technology-wise high, there are, of course, people who are going to buy it. For the first time, we have competed in a competitive environment in an export. It is not something which is being given through credit line. It is something which is competing in the marketplace. So that's a great thing forward. Secondly, it is one product which can be on the NCW. Now I'm linking with the Revolution Military Affairs. Net-centric warfare can be enabled through a radar like Swathi radar. It can give projections anywhere you want to. So that is where. It is also the precision which is coming into play, which is another part of the RMA, precision. That here the precision is 35 meters, and which at the time of induction ceremony, the then Defence Minister, Mr. Manu, he pointed out that of course you have to make it more precise, of course you have to use the active radar. Okay. That has come. The third element is the range, what we call BVR, beyond visual range. So beyond visual range or beyond the range of the enemy fire. So if you increase the range, which currently is at the international standard about 40 to 50, instrumented is 50, other categories general has already told. So if you got into 50 domain, you're already at threshold. You should try to increase that. The next version, I guess, would be that. And that's how you compete yourself. That means you make your product, your own indigenous product, whether it's Akash or any other product, matching with the international items available in the market. And if I can compete on a common grid through the competitive process, then I would say we have really come of the age. Okay.
Manu, quick concluding comments from you.
Yeah, I think that the Indian private sector has really done its job. Out of the 10,000 odd crores of exports that we have done this year, 95% are from the private sector. Now, PSUs have to pull up their socks. Swathi is unfortunately a lone example in public sector units doing well. We have not been able to, though there are so many potential things like the general pointed out, Akash, BrahMos, we have probably the LC also on that list, but unfortunately they have not been able to do that. Two things the government has done which I think will increase this. One, they have mandated that all PSUs have to generate 25% of their revenues from exports. I think that's a great move. And I think if that works out, we will really see our exports jumping to beyond 35,000 crores very easily, because given the quantum of the production we do. Secondly, what they have done is, again, something which is very opposite to what we've done in the past. All Indian embassies abroad and all Indian defense attaches abroad will be the ambassadors for Indian equipment. Basically, they will make sure that Indian systems are sold, they are marketed well, and they've been allocated special funds for this. So these two things together, I think, can really push our exports. And the biggest thing, of course, is the political direction. And today we are confident as a country that we can export arms. We are away from the whole non-alignment world that we will not supply arms to people. I think we see a new confidence in that. And I really have good expectation from our exports side. And I think we are going to breach that top 10 list very soon.
Okay, that's something which will be very interesting to watch out for, reaching that top 10 list as far as defense exporters are concerned. Thank you so much, gentlemen. General Saxena, AVM Srivastava and Manu out there for your views. So there it is, as our panelists pointed out in detail, not only about the journey of military radars, their indigenous development, but specifically on Swathi weapon locating radar, and the very fact that India is now aggressively marketing and exporting its own defense equipments, getting a mention rather, they are at number 23 in the global exporting countries, but it is quite likely that we might breach that number 10 spot and reach the target of 35,000 crores as has been set for the DPSUs as well. We'll come back again next week with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.